accept this award, there's no greater feeling than being honored by your peers for work that you love to do. I would first like to thank the members of the 2015 Distinguished Service Award Committee, Julie Cummins, Amy Kilman, Marge Lock-Waters, Penny Markey, and Susan Pine. I've worked with each one of them over the years on ALSC committees, boards, and task forces, as well as having had countless conversations in corridors and women's rooms and meeting rooms about the burning issues of the day, or just about great children's books, which is really what we all have in common here, no matter what we believe, how we work, or where we come from. It's about the books. Julie, Amy, Marge, Penny, and Susan are among the people that I see at least twice a year at ALA conferences, and when we see each other, it's always as if no time has passed. We often take up right where we left off 6 months earlier. Those of you who've been active in ALA for more than a few years know what this is all about. It's what former ALSC President Steve Herb once aptly called ALA time, when 6 months ago seems like yesterday. It's a special librarian wrinkle in time. It's also an honor to receive an award that's been given to so many great ALSC members over the years. People I admire, people I've idolized, people I've tried to emulate, and people I have loved. Someone who fits all four of these categories is the late, great Bill Morris, who received the very first ALSC Distinguished Service Award. Knowing how Bill worked tirelessly for decades, and knowing a little bit about how ALSC works, I have a hunch that Bill may have even inspired the creation of this award back in 1992. He was proud to have received it. He proudly wore his Distinguished Servant's pin on his lapel. It was a Tiffany pin, and I understand he actually took it to Tiffany's before each conference to have it polished. And he was even prouder of all the ALSC Distinguished Service winners who came after him. That was Bill. And I will wear my own Tiffany pin in honor of and in memory of Bill. I just won't be taking it to Tiffany's. Alas. Another Distinguished Service Award winner is my dear friend and career-long mentor, Ginny Moore Cruz. Ginny guided me in my career from the beginning. When I first wandered into the CCBC on the University of Wisconsin campus as an undergraduate, not quite lost, but not quite knowing what I was looking for. What I found was a pile of brand new children's books that were up for discussion, and a welcoming young librarian named Susan Griffith, who invited me to read them and attend the next CCBC discussion. I did, and I loved it. I learned during the introductions at that very first discussion that the CCBC director, Ginny Cruz, was chairing that Newbery Committee that year. I was impressed by that. I had heard of the Newbery Medal. I'd read and loved many of them as a child, even Adam of the Road. Anyone else here ever read? I loved Adam of the Road. It was one of my favorite books. I felt honored to take place in these discussions, feeling as though I was playing some small role in a much larger and more important process. And more significantly for me, I rediscovered children's books and found a community of people who were committed to discussing them intelligently to figure out which ones were the best to recommend to and to share with children. Attending those discussions in my senior year of college was instrumental in my decision to apply for library school. I have been working at the CCBC ever since, working with Ginny from 1979 until 2002 when she retired. Ginny taught me many things about the library profession, and one of the most important things she taught me was that it was critical to be active in ALA. She led by example, but she also introduced me to many people in the library world and in publishing. At the first ALA conference I ever attended, she introduced me to Zena Sutherland, who had written the textbook that I had just used in a children's literature class I'd recently taken. We talked about books. I was starstruck. At the same event, she introduced me to Betsy Hearn and Barbara Elliman, who were then co-editors of Booklist. We talked about books. We always talked about books. And then across the room, I noticed a woman who really stood out at this fancy publisher event. "Who's the woman in the baseball cap?" I asked Ginny. She said, "Oh, that's Ruth Gordon. You should go introduce yourself to her." And I did. We talked baseball. And we may have talked politics. And I'm sure we talked books. We became good friends. And along with Ruth and her partner Linda Perkins, many, many ALAs of talking baseball, politics, and books. Over the years, Ruth has often been the voice of dissent in ALA and ALSC, and we haven't always agreed on things, but from her I learned to listen to strong opinions. Not just listen to them, but listen for them. Ginny not only introduced me to a lot of people in those early years who became lifelong friends and colleagues, but she also introduced me to the tradition of attending the Coretta Scott King Award breakfast each year. It's not an ALSC event, I know, but a lot of ALSC members go to this event. I remember the early years when Ginny used to take me to the CSK breakfast, and we would be among the very few white people at this event. I'm very pleased that the ALSC board has recently made it possible for people serving on ALSC committees to attend the Coretta Scott King Award breakfast by being flexible about their meeting times. I remember I first heard Rita Auerbach bring this up as a concern at a membership meeting a few years ago, and I thank her for it. And I also thank Nina Lindsay for taking up the cause and seeing it through. Again, it's that dissenting voice that can make a difference. We need to listen to them. There's one other person that I would like to acknowledge here, and that's former ALSC president and Distinguished Service Award winner Jane Botham. When I was a very young librarian just starting out, Jane appointed me to the Notable Children's Book Committee. I was a novice, and I was serving on a powerhouse committee that included Therese Bigelow, Grace Ruth, Connie Rockman, Sarah Miller, Ruth Gordon, and Zena Sutherland. Imagine those discussions. But Jane's trust in my abilities and in my commitment to ALSC made a huge difference to me. That was the first stepping stone on a path toward years of ALSC service, which ultimately led to serving as ALSC president and to this award today. Jane inspired me when I was making ALSC appointments myself years and years later, so I remembered to reach out to newer, sometimes but not always younger, members. I am so pleased whenever I see on today's rosters and ballots the names of people that I appointed to their first committees, people like Brandy Sanchez, Meg Smith, and Holly Jin. I'm so pleased that they have continued to be active in ALSC and are becoming an important part of this great organization. I know ALSC will benefit greatly from their service over the years, and they, as I did, will grow professionally and personally. Lastly, I want to acknowledge the great ALSC staff who work behind the scenes to serve members and hold everything together. I want to give a special acknowledgement to former ALSC Executive Director Diane Foote, who is one of the most caring, committed, hardworking, and good-humored people I know. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to serve as ALSC president with Diane as a support and sounding board, and soulmate, I will say. I also want to thank my wife, Emily Koki, who keeps me grounded at home, and my CCBC colleagues, Mary Lindgren, Megan Schliessman, and Emily Townsend, who help keep the CCBC the sort of vital place that Ginny Moore Cruz worked so hard to create, a vital, welcoming place that is always saying, come in, sit down, let's talk about books. Every time I walk through the doors of the CCBC and see a pile of shiny new books waiting to be opened, read, and discussed, it feels like that very first day when I wandered in. It's just now I know what I'm looking for. Thanks to you, all of my ALSC family. Thank you.